Sheldon, it's the first game back, obviously, since what happened on Thursday with Austin breaking the record. What sort of atmosphere, what are you expecting tonight, how that might help energize the group?
I mean, I'm sure fans are going to acknowledge it. We got a little bit of a taste of that when he got 50 here. Yeah, so I'm sure that'll bring some energy to the game. With Austin specifically, it's funny. I mean, we just over a week ago we were here celebrating 50, and now we're back 4 games later. He's at 56. So it's been an incredible run for him. So he certainly deserves any and all acknowledgments that'll come his way.
You anticipate putting him in the starting lineup? You might have been doing that anyway, just to get in front of him.
I haven't thought about it. We'll see.
Jason was just saying that he still feels like the best is yet to come with Austin, which is remarkable when you consider everything that's happened. What sort of room do you see for him to grow still?
Well, I mean, he's obviously right at the top of his game right now, as good as he's been in terms of the offense and things like that. I think in terms of when we think about the best is yet to come, I think it's he's leading our team to new heights, really, and the potential. And, I mean, he, for obvious reasons, is getting great attention, but Mitch Marner's been on an incredible run here as well. And that duo is driving our team to new heights. And that's what I see in terms of potential where we can get to, is to, take another step as a hockey team. And that's through the remaining games in the regular season, but most importantly in the playoffs. And that's what it's about. And I think that's where Austin's focus remains through all of this. This is all exciting. And as we talked about the other day, it's part of the regular season journey. You got to be good in these games. You got to build momentum, and ultimately you're building confidence so that you can be your best when it counts the most.
Sheldon, you took this job mid-season, different circumstances to what St. Louis did. He came in mid-season. What were the challenges, or what are the challenges for a coach mid-season coming in, and also when it's your first NHL job?
I think my experience was that the NHL schedule doesn't allow much for practice or pause. You're just consistently preparing for games or recovering from games. So that's a challenge that way. The teams are in 2 different situations. We were a team that at the time was outside the playoffs, but certainly had great expectations to make its way to the playoffs, and the season paused and all of that kind of stuff before we went into the bubble. But I would say the lack of practice time and the pace of the schedule is the greatest challenge, because you can't really get a hold of things. But if you recall, my focus a lot at that time was to just get the team feeling good and confident and positive and believing in themselves and believing in what we're doing. From what I gathered, that's what Marty's focus has been, and players have responded. I mean, I was looking at the roster there again this morning, prepping for tonight, and it's a good team. They got lots of ingredients there left over from last season, and they've added some players from different organizations, and that they've got reason to believe there. I think Marty seems like he's provided them that.
He's been a guy who's had to fight for everything he's had. You guys were in Tampa at the same time as players. What do you remember about him back then in terms of the drive that he showed, up to now in terms of where he's gotten?
The biggest thing that stood out to me at that time, and obviously our playing careers went in 2 different directions, but the biggest thing that stood out to me was his belief in himself and his ability, because his ability was remarkable at the time. But he was, for whatever reason, and I'm sure his size was the top of the list, that he wasn't getting great opportunities, but he continued to believe in himself, and when opportunity came, he took advantage of it and never looked back.
What is your perspective of someone coming from quite literally minor hockey, like in the minorest of minor hockey, to this level and making that jump immediately? You obviously had a lot of time to prepare in the NHL, and most coaches do. What was your reaction when you saw that someone was coming from that level and making this immediate jump? Is pretty rare.
Well, my reaction was that it's not just someone. That's probably the biggest thing. He's a Hall of Fame player with a passion and intelligence for the game that's, right at the top of the list of people that have played the game. So, I guess that was my first reaction. It's not just someone, and you look at a lot of the different connections and things, and it makes a lot of sense, and obviously the results have been there for them.
How do you treat the final segment any differently than you do the rest of the regular season? Is there anything to take away from last year heading into the playoffs to this year heading into the playoffs that you think could enable you to focus on something specific that will prepare you that much better?
I try not to think too much about last season. I think this season's team is different. Plus, some of the players are different. The mindset of our team is different. The experience of last year's playoff has helped us as well. Having a little more time from trade deadline to end of season this year versus last is beneficial and different. So it's given us more opportunity in Giordano's case, and even Blackwell for that matter, giving us a chance to try different things here now and settle into that. The division setup was a lot different, obviously, last year, and we're still continuing to be in a real battle for. I mean, you can go anywhere really still in the division. So, there's lots to continue to play for there, but most importantly, just want to make sure we're getting our game right, and we feel like we've been trending in the right direction for a while. Good road trip for us in terms of our results. There's still things inside that process that we could do better, and in particular in the Florida and Dallas games. Those both games we have leads, but games go to overtime, and that's something we want to make sure we get that taken care of. We've been pretty good in that area. We're really good in Tampa in that regard, but you need to do it consistently every time out.
Carter, having skated before the morning session here, is he a potential option for you guys between now and the end of the regular season?
I don't know a lot about that. I think he's just working his way back to health, and I think it's, if he gets to that point, I think it'd be more of a Marley situation just to add additional depth to the organization. There, obviously, we've got a number of injuries in goal this season at both levels.
What went into going to Eric tonight, and what's your sense of how you responded to what was a tough night in Florida?
I think he's fine. I mean, I don't know how tough the night was. He gave up a tough goal. He actually played quite well up until that point. And then, he got shaken up and everything, but he seems to have recovered well from that and has no issues in terms of playing him. It was obviously we ended up having to use Jack more than we had anticipated on that trip. So coming back here, quick turnaround was an easy decision.